beautiful sunny balcony overlooking Discovery Passage at Wiley and Suzanne's Campbell River home. Heading out for a tour of the neighbourhood. Thank you, Wiley, for the loan of the hat. Canadian households no longer have personal mailboxes. Mail is delivered to a community post box situated conveniently to access your own locker. Don't know how convenient it is when there is heavy snow. A beautifully presented 1979 Ford Mercury. More local mailboxes. The trees have this unusual shape as they are pruned by deer searching for food in the neighbourhood, and they only graze on what they can reach. A beautiful red maple. I think this pole has had a few posters nailed to it. And I always thought Jayco was an Australian company. An elaborate house number post. Rhododendrons and azaleas are predominant in the area, and the colours are outstanding. Yes, it's a red Tesla. Big utes are also very common, as was the case in most of Canada and the USA. Some drone shots overlooking Discovery Passage and the local neighbourhood. I carried the drone on the entire trip, and this was the only footage I took. A visit to the Campbell River Museum to learn some history of the local area. The Soyokaze cod fishing vessel was built in 1939 for Mr. Shikazu Matsunaga, a Japanese Canadian who was interned along with all other Japanese nationals following Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor. At that time, Canada had also declared war on Japan. Following the war, the Matsunaga family returned to Campbell River and regained possession of the Soyokaze and continued with their fishing business. Unusually, the Soyokaze had a wet hull, which allowed seawater to flow through the midsection, allowing caught fish to remain alive longer. It was ultimately donated to the museum. Campbell River has a long history in the fishing industry, and some examples of Tyee salmon caught in the heyday are an incredible size.
Rows and flows of angel hair, an ice cream castle.
As with all contact with Indigenous peoples by the British in the colonial days, the inhabitants of Vancouver Island were subjected to loss of land and the process of de-Indianisation, very similar to the history in Australia.
Discovered or visited by any other European power, and to distribute among the inhabitants such things as will remain as traces and testimonies of your having been there. But if you find the countries so discovered are uninhabited, you are to take possession of them.
I would have done, but clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's cloud illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds. At all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way that you feel as every fairy tale comes real.
As with most of Canada, the timber industry was pivotal to the success of Vancouver Island.
It's just another show, and you leave them laughing when you go. And if you can, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions that I recall. I really don't know love. I really don't know love at all. Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds, I've looked at life that way. All but now, old friends, they're acting strange, and they shake their heads and they tell me that I've changed. Well, something's lost, but something's gained in living every day. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall.
The Willows Hotel was the first tourist hotel built at Campbell River by Charles and Frederick Thulin, and provided a luxury stay for those wishing to try out their hand at local fishing. The museum provides a lovingly reproduced insight into how it would have appeared in 1914.
It's life's illusions that I recall. So many things I really don't know life, but clouds got in my way. I really don't know life at all. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's cloud illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all.
An early example of a Vancouver float home. Not a houseboat, but a home built to stay in one place but float on the water. This option did not require land to build on.
Dancing way that you feel as every fairy tale comes real.
The 5 common varieties of salmon can be identified by using your fingers. Chum is your thumb, sockeye is your index finger, king is your middle finger, silver is your ring finger, and pink is your pinky.
Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take.
An early canning machine behind the boat.
Somehow it's love's illusions that I recall. I really don't know love.
These cans represent the proportion of each salmon variety that is processed.
Really don't know love at all. Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds. I've looked at life that way. Oh, but now, old friend,
A barge heading north towards Seymour Narrows.
and they shake their heads and they tell me that I've changed. Well, something's
This video has been extended by approximately 8 minutes to cover a story that anyone who has travelled on a cruise ship past or visited Campbell River should be made aware of. Prior to 1958, the Seymour Narrows, part of the Inside Passage just north of Campbell River, had a treacherous obstacle known as Ripple Rock. This addition to the video covers the incredible engineering feat that was implemented to alleviate the danger.
The Inside Passage, one of the world's most famous navigation routes. More than 40,000 kilometers of rugged, sheltered coastline, stretching from Alaska all the way to Washington State. While Discovery Passage is just a small stretch of this waterway, It has played a key role in maintaining this maritime highway. Navigation here has not always been safe. A jagged underwater obstacle known as Ripple Rock once blocked Seymour Narrows, the narrowest portion of this channel. It would take one of the largest explosions in human history to make this waterway safe for mariners, once and for all.
Seymour Narrows is the main waterway for vessels going by Campbell River on their way to Prince Rupert in Alaska. In Seymour Narrows, it's noted for the fast rising tides and the turbulent, gaping whirlpools. In Seymour Narrows, there is a mountain under the water with steep sides, irregular shaped, and it has two pinnacles. And that was the hazard in Seymour Narrows for these ships. From British Columbia's earliest days, the rock was wrecking vessels, and a lot of lives were lost. Pretty close to 50 ships were wrecked or sunk there, and about 100 lives. Some of the vessels that went down, everyone drowned. Some just got holes ripped in them, and as people escaped, some of them would get away with their life. There was pressure put on the Canadian government to try to get rid of this hazardous rock. It was first proposed in 1931, but nothing happened till about 1943 and 1945. They planned to drill into the top of the rock from a barge that was anchored directly over the two pinnacles. Now, this project cost about $1 million, and it was not successful. And at this time is when the crew boat got caught in the whirlpool and 9 lives were lost. Nothing happened until 1955. That's when the engineers in the federal government come up with another plan. So this plan was to go to nearby Maud Island and sink a shaft, and that would be about the height of a 50-story building. And then the tunnel was driven 7,000 feet, and then they went up into the two pinnacles. The drillers were experienced hard rock miners, and they took about 2.5 years to put 1,200 feet of tunnels in the rock pinnacles. Once they had those tunnels all drilled out, they put in 1,300 tons of special high explosive. In April 1958, everything was set up, and on the day to set off the explosion, they had a special underground bunker where the television crews and officials from our Canadian government were able to watch the explosion when it went off. And it happened at 9:30 in the morning, just when the tide was right. When that explosion was set off, it was the largest man-made, non-nuclear peacetime explosion. It blew about 2 acres of rock off those twin pinnacles. It took 70 feet off the north pinnacle and 45 off the southern pinnacle. This explosion that blew off those twin peaks was a success. Now the rock is not a hazard to the marine traffic. It's not going to tear the bottom out of the boat. So I think that mariners are quite pleased that that rock got moved.